will find that many nursing homes are interconnected with other nursing homes. And if something was to go wrong with your relationship in one of the accounts that is given to you, that may affect you in other accounts, or it may affect other providers that work for skilled wound care. Most nursing homes are for profit. They focus on cost and efficiency, and it is important for them to view us as a partner with their operation and not as a burden to their operation. So it is important that we ask what is their formulary, so that we order things within the formulary, and we're not ordering treatment options that are extremely costly or that are not available in the nursing home setting. We'll find that nurses work in multiple facilities, and very often if something goes wrong with your relationship with a nurse, it is carried onto other facilities, so word of mouth becomes extremely important. So be aware that the way that you handle your relationships with the nurses impacts you a lot in the way that you render the care with skilled wound care. Nurses are the ones that rule in the nursing home. So it is important that you recognize this concept so that you can learn how to manage conflict, how to manage your relationship with them, so that you always have positive outcomes with the nurses that you work with.
It's like a puzzle. Each person has got a special part. And without that part and without that part's function, the team can't be effective as it should be. When you work in a nursing home, you have to always, every day, go that extra mile with somebody. You just can't say, well, I'm only going to do so-and-so today. I'm tired, I don't feel well, I'm not for it today.
It is hard when you start because it is something new, and you have to get to know all these people and know what they're used to or what they do like and what they don't like. But as long as you're here for the right reason, and as long as you are here not just to do a job, but you feel something for doing for other people, then it'll get easier. And it got a lot easier for me.
The patient characteristics of a nursing home are very unique. You'll find that about 45% of the patients that reside in a nursing home are older than 85 years of age. This is important because most of these patients have a lot of comorbidities, but very often what happens in the nursing home is these comorbidities are not documented when a wound is failing to heal, or is healing at a very slow pace, or is deteriorating. So the onus is on you to understand the big picture of what's going on with the patient, so that you're able to capture those things in your documentation, and that you're able to establish medical necessity for every procedure that you render and every visit that you give this patient. Hospitalization of patients becomes an extremely important concept of nursing homes, because nursing homes are always trying to avoid hospitalization so that they're not losing patients. Every day that the patient is out of the nursing home, the nursing home will lose revenue. And these are the things that we bring together as a medical group into the nursing home at the bedside, so that we can help. So let's talk a little bit about who controls the flow in the nursing home. In order for us to understand that, we'll need to know the conventional organization of a nursing home, and you'll find that the nursing home is usually led by a nursing home administrator, and they lead usually about 13 to 15 departments. And they have the ultimate decision-making power. They are influenced by other departments, however, because of the fact that he or she needs the department managers in order to make an operation successful. They may or may not always yield to the department managers for decisions, but they are greatly influenced by other managers in terms of what services are being brought into the building, or what decisions are being made in the building. And often they don't want to rock the boat because there are a lot of departments in the operation, and they rather work through each area, and they rather make decisions that are going to be affecting you in a negative way than affecting his department in a negative way. They are focused on cost, so if we're spending too much money on unnecessary treatments or unnecessary hospitalizations, the administrator will be concerned about these things. The director of nurses is the person responsible for the direct patient care. According to regulation and company policy, they do have some burden of responsibility for the nursing department in terms of the financial outcomes of the operation in the nursing department, in terms of purchasing products or labor costs. So it's important that you're not ordering expensive dressings or expensive medications that are not covered within their formulary. And it is important that you understand that if you don't come on time and nurses have to stay over, they may be acquiring overtime, and that's going to be a big problem with the director of nurses. They are responsible for patient care outcomes in terms of their annual survey and their complaint visit outcomes. The director of nurses is viewed as a co-pilot, and very often you'll find that director of nurses doesn't make decisions unilaterally. They usually speak with the administrator and they find consensus. They are responsible for the largest department of the facilities. Because of this, they yield a tremendous amount of power and influence over the administrator and over the other department managers. And they are easily influenced by nursing staff because they count on the nursing staff for the day-to-day care. So they're trying to very often work with nursing staff in avoiding conflict and trying to deliver care in the smoothest possible way. The director of nurses is involved in every difficult case in the facility. So if you have cases that are difficult, you must be discussing these with the director of nurses, because the last thing you want is a director of nurses to be surprised by some situation that's going on with the patient that they were not aware of. They do get involved in every aspect of patient care delivery systems, and plan of care. So whenever you have issues or problems with a patient or a family or a wound that is failing to thrive, then you should be discussing these things with the director of nurses so that they are always advocates for your services and not also blaming you for what's going on. The treatment nurse is responsible for the daily wound care of the facility, and they are perceived as being the wound experts. Now, you may find as you begin to speak with them and you begin to know them that they may or may not have any formal training in wound care, but they most likely learn wound care either through the job or through resources on the internet, word of mouth, or other product representatives. So sometimes when you work with them, they will have opinions about products or techniques about wound care that may not necessarily be what you know is right. So the important thing here is that you deal with those things in a very careful manner, that you begin to educate them, but using trust as the primary vehicle for education, because if they don't trust you, then they're not going to trust what you're trying to teach them. But if they trust you, they will learn from you, and they will want to learn what the right thing is. We want to use resources. We want to use our educational resources for skilled wound care or any type of material that you think might help you establish that trust. Treatment nurses are the main gatekeepers because they're the ones that are treating the wounds every day. They're the ones that are deciding what wounds should be seen by a consultant physician. And they yield a high degree of influence both to the director of nurses and the administrator. They may not always be the decision maker, but they are perceived as the decision maker for the wound and the wound care in the building. Very often they are trying to avoid conflict because they don't see it as their pay grade to have to deal with conflict, so they will yield conflict to a decision maker, which would usually be a director of nurses. And you don't necessarily want this, because when these problems get elevated to a director of nurses, then very often you become the problem rather than the issue becoming the problem. So you have to really work on developing good conflict resolution approaches. You have to really work on making sure that you build consensus on the things that you want to establish for your plans of care. The treatment nurse is involved on a day-to-day basis for the daily wound care. They work very hard with staff members to prevent or avoid pressure ulcers or wounds. They are responsible for the documentation of anything that's going on with the wound care. So it is important that you are constantly focused on ensuring that your documentation matches with their documentation, because you don't want something to become a problem and it becomes a problem for them. Because if it becomes a problem for them, then they're not going to blame themselves. They're going to blame others. They do work with all of the providers, so they may have worked with other providers prior to you coming in. So it's important that you learn how to adjust and how they work and what their workflow is, so that you build good trust and you build good working relationships with them. Very often you find that they have other relationships with product representatives, and if they don't build a good trusting relationship with you, then they're going to trust that product relationship more over yours. And often you'll find that product representatives are eager to be selling their products and not necessarily eager to be doing the right thing for the wound. They do make isolated decisions for the use of products and services, so they do yield a great deal of influence in terms of our ability to render services week in and week out.